Okay, I think I'm going to go ahead and call the Parks and Conservation meeting of October 14th to order, and I will just go ahead and do roll call. Kara, if that sounds good to you. Anderson,
Present.
Becerra, don't believe she is not present. Contos,
Here.
Harp, Heather, are you out there? Let's see. I do not, Heather is not present. Hess.
Present.
Jones.
Present.
Merritt.
Present.
Ramos. I see
Here.
him. Okay. Cheryl is present. Vasika.
Present.
Von Lossberg is not present today. And West. Is West back yet? I see her there. So I'm going to count her as present. I see her screen is on there. So we have minutes from September 30th. Are there any changes to those minutes? And seeing none, let's see, make sure no one's hands up. Seeing none, those will stand approved. I'm going to step back for just a second though. As you know, we're meeting virtually still. And so if you're not attending this webinar, which I do not see any attendees, you still have the opportunity to comment on items related to Parks and Conservation or items specifically on this agenda. You can call in at 406-552-6012, or you can leave an email for council, for the full council at council@ci.missoula.mt.us. I do not see any public though for public comment. So let's see, we have a couple agenda items. Sorry, I'm trying to use one screen and it's tricky sometimes. Our first agenda item is for the South Reserve Pedestrian Bridge Controls Modification. And is David, are you here? I think we should have a presentation by.
Am I
David.
here?
Oh, there
Can
you
you hear
are.
me?
Okay, I can hear you now. Is this David?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you and good afternoon, council members. Here, David Selvage with Parks and Rec. I have a request to approve a contract with Anchor Electric in the amount not to exceed $34,000 to provide for control upgrades for the South Reserve Pedestrian Bridge deck heating system. It includes some modifications to sensors here to make that bridge more energy efficient, more reliable in operation when the snow and frost hit it, and also to provide for monitoring to ensure that the controls are functioning correctly for a 2-year period before we take full control of all the controls. This has been this bridge has been pretty well used for its location. I know there's some that says they've never seen anybody crossing it. But the challenge is that we've been spending, last year we spent almost $20,000 just on the deck heating system for the electricity alone. And this control system should bring electrical costs down at least in half. The original operating estimate for the deck heating system and things that are related to was that we would spend annually around $8,600. So these controls are intended to bring those costs into line without affecting existing warranties for construction and materials. I can answer questions.
Thanks, David. Do you, this isn't specific to this, but do you have any updated numbers on the use of that bridge?
I do not. I had sent an email asking for some updated numbers and I haven't gotten a response back.
Okay, thanks. I know that it's
We
more
do
than,
have a counter there.
yeah, and I know that it's more than people think, and also that it is, it would be stopping a lot of traffic more regularly than people realize if we had people actually crossing the road instead of using the bridge. I'm going to go to council questions now, since there is no one in the audience. I'm having some trouble. Oh, there. Oh. Neil, are you on here? I see that you have your hand up.
I was just going to say, while we're talking, I'll hurry and log on and see if I can get some numbers for you.
Oh, okay, that'd be great. Thank you. Are there any additional questions from council? Julie, go ahead.
Sorry, can't quite hit the unmute button. I'll give Neil a minute to see if he can come up with those numbers for us. But I do have a question, since you mentioned it, David, about the warranty on the heating system on the bridge. Could you tell us a little bit more about that warranty and how these changes, you said, I think, are not going to affect that?
So this is the bridge deck is made out of a reinforced fiber plastic, and has it's a sandwich construction. It has a metal frame. The deck wear surface is this reinforced fiber plastic. It's got a heating controls in it, and then insulation to keep so that the bottom of the panels aren't being heated up. And the deck system has a 10-year warranty on it. And by modifying the controls, we're modifying the amount of electricity that can get to the deck heating system, so that we can control the heat. We've had panels register as high as almost 80 degrees when we're running it, and that's way too hot. And the other challenge is that, this is kind of a new system here, this particular heating system. So we wanted to ensure that whatever we modified it with wouldn't affect those panels, their physical properties, or how they operate. And so that's why this proposal is the most cost-effective, least cost option of all that we have looked at.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
And Heidi.
Thanks. I was wondering if you had an idea of what the energy savings would be in a year from, I guess, upgrading the system to be more efficient.
We have not had those calculated. What we did was our original calculations provided by DJ&A were that the deck heating system would cost us around $8,600 annually. What we know is that the total bill just last year for electricity was almost $20,000. And we believe that these controls, which will allow the decks to be heated up to, say, 40 or 50 degrees, sufficient to melt snow or frost, they'll do that, and they'll do that more quickly so that we can cycle through across all the deck, or all the panels on the deck. Right now, we can only cycle through about 20 minutes each. So we're taking advantage of the amount of power we have without having to increase the power supply, and we're taking advantage that these deck panels can be controlled more closely by adding these control sensors. And then we're adding to it here an ability to look at it online so staff can monitor and make sure it's running correctly. And those things then we probably should see operating costs much lower more in line with the DJ&A cost proposal of around $9,000. So that would basically would be more than half of our costs if we're successful. There is an element of weather though. And so, you know, how cold it is, how much moisture received tells you how much the deck has to run.
Thank you. John?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I had a question. This bridge is not that old. And I was wondering, the people that installed the heating system in there, are they any way responsible for it not working right and us having to shell out $34,000?
That you put me in a funny position here. Parks is operating the bridge. The Missoula Redevelopment Agency funded and oversaw construction. The MRA has put a demand letter to Jackson Contractor and their subcontractor that provided the deck, asking for funds back on this. I don't know what that amount is off the top of my head, but I do know they've asked it. They don't feel that the deck heating system gets rid of snow as it should. Mm-hmm. Part of that is because when it gets really cold out, the deck will refreeze before it can get back through and cycle back through to the heating elements. And that's what we're trying to fix with the controls, is to heat the deck up and then get back to it more quickly before it freezes. And that's what these controls allow. Whether it meets the contract requirements for snow and ice, I'm going to let others debate that. What we do know is that location's kind of unique. We get frost down there. And so we're running the deck a lot more than we thought we would have to, because the deck surface, when it gets frosted, is fairly slippery. And so that's part of the scenario of does it run correctly or not correctly. Mm-hmm. What we do know is we can run it more efficiently.
Right, I get that. So someone is trying to talk to the people that installed this for some type of reimbursement?
Yes, sir.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Good question. Jordan.
Is there some hybrid of traditional snow removal? Like if there's a big accumulation day, do we plow the bridge and then also let the heating system come in, or is it exclusively run on the heating system?
The deck heating system was chosen because of the constraints placed on the bridge by Montana Department of Transportation. They will not allow us to push snow off the bridge into Reserve Street. You can understand why.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I hadn't thought of that. I appreciate that.
Sorry, I was on mute. I think Neil's sharing his screen here. Neil, do you have some additional information?
No, it looks like the peak day use has been 654 users. The daily average for the last year was 237, 223 daily per week for I think the last week. So I do know that before we put the bridge, we did a daily count at post siding and reserve as part of the MPO's counts, and it was 1 to 2 users. So it's up substantially.
Great, thank you. I don't see anyone else's hand up. Let me double check here. I appreciate that information, Neil and David. I'm looking for a motion on this. Heidi. I think
I was going to make the motion, but if Heather wants to make it, that's fine with me too. Yeah, I think this is a much needed adjustment, and I don't think there's any reason these should be heating up to 80 degrees. And if there's a way we can rein in both the energy costs and the efficiency of this, I think that is super important and falls in line with, goals like reducing our carbon footprint. So I'd like to make the motion.
Great, thank you. So there is a motion on the floor. There are no public in attendance. We'll do some brief discussion on this motion, and then I'll take a roll call vote. And Kara, if you do that, that'd be great. Jesse?
I'd just like to say I'm going to recuse myself from this vote because of business dealings I have with the owner of Anchor Electric.
Great, I appreciate that. Kara, you want to go ahead and take a roll call vote? I don't see any other hands up for discussion. Kara, I think you're muted.
I don't have the voting software. Yeah, she means you.
I'm happy to do the roll call
Hey,
vote.
it's Karina here. I'll go ahead and do the roll call vote. I was
Okay.
you kept saying Kara, so I'm like, okay. But anyway.
Sorry, that's my fault. I had the wrong person. I wasn't sure whose
That's
duty
okay.
line where. Thank you.
No worries. Here we go. Anderson?
Yes.
Anderson votes yes. Contos?
Yes.
Contos votes yes. Harp?
Yes.
Harp votes yes. Hess?
Yes.
Hess votes yes. Jones?
Yes.
Jones votes yes. Merritt?
Yes.
Merritt votes yes. Ramos? Oh, you're recusing. So sorry.
Recuse?
Cheryl?
Yes.
Cheryl votes yes. Vaseka?
Yes.
Vaseka votes yes. West?
Yes.
West votes yes. So that was a unanimous vote. I have 9 yeses, 0 noes, and 1 abstain.
Great, thank you. So that will go on the consent agenda, and we have one more item. Thank you, David, and thank you, Neil. I appreciate all that information and bringing this forward. So Grant Carlton should be here, and this is to review a review of road construction and access documents related to Waterworks Hill Trailhead Capital Improvement Project. So let's see. I think you're here, Grant.
I am here.
Awesome. Okay, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, council members. Grant Carlton, Open Space Program Manager, Missoula Parks and Rec. I do apologize. My camera was working, but now it's not. So hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I'm here today to discuss some construction and access road documents related to the Waterworks Hill Trailhead and Interpretive Trail Capital Improvements Project. And up for review, and what we're asking is for authority for the mayor to sign 3 documents. 1 is a public access and utility easement, 2 is a development agreement, and 3 is the temporary use permit. And that would be between the city of Missoula and Nicholas L. Peschel. And I'll just go over some quick background. I know you guys have had this in your packet, but just a quick refresher. Back in November, when the 2018 open space bond was approved, there were certain earmarks and certain pots of money set aside out of the city's $7.5 million share of the bond, 500,000 of which should be applied to improving trails and trailheads across Missoula's open space and conservation land system. And throughout those talks and the development of that plan, the North Hills Waterworks Trailhead Improvement was identified as a key project or priority. And as you guys know, as our portfolio of conservation lands and open space lands has grown, we have increased difficulties and challenges dealing with management, maintenance, and stewardship of those lands. And so back in November, I was before you guys and council presenting 3 capital improvement projects. And if you guys recall, this is the first bond, open space bond, that allows for eligibility related to expenditure for capital improvement projects. And at that time, back in November, we were bringing forward 3 capital improvement projects, which were the first projects in general from the new bond. And one of those was the Missoula Conservation Lands Trailhead Improvements Project. And encompassed within that project was a request of $135,000 from the open space bond specifically for the Waterworks Hill Trailhead in an interpretive trail capital improvement project. And that came with matching funds, which we can talk about a little bit more in just a moment. And basically that project will provide for access road improvements, construction of a new parking area up on Waterworks Hill, enhancement of trailhead infrastructure and signage to meet city specs, and then also a construction of a all abilities loop trail and connections to the existing North Hills trail system up on Waterworks Hill and in the North Hills, as well as some site-specific interpretive education. And again, what we're asking today is for authority to execute the 3 documents I mentioned earlier. And essentially what we're talking about is the access road that will allow users in the city to access Waterworks Hill from Greeno Drive. So that road is called Minkler Loop, and it goes up through a small section of the Peschel family's property. So what we've got is a public, sorry, somebody just came in my office. So what we have is a public access and utility easement before us, and that will allow the city and the public to come up Minkler Loop and cross the Peschel property perpetually, both motorized and non-motorized, to access the actual trailhead and trail system. We've got a development agreement, which basically is the document that dictates how that road will be constructed, laying out the sidewalks and the widths and construction specs. And then to actually build that road, we have a temporary use permit, which will allow the city to go on the Peschel property and actually build that road. And that's just a temporary use, and the timeline of that does coincide with the time that the city requires to actually complete the construction. All of these documents have been approved by Parks and Rec, city legal staff, and public works staff. And there aren't any, as part of this specific scope, there are no requested financial expenditures. And I do have included in your packet was basically a budget related to the actual Waterworks Hill capital improvement project. We can talk about that a little bit if you guys would like. And so basically I've got Neil here as some backup to provide some historical context if you guys would like, because I came into this project again with a limited scope to just sort of help facilitate and negotiate these 3 documents. And again, you guys did approve that sort of broad category of a capital improvement project back in November. So these funds are already approved. And I guess I will take questions at this point.
Yeah, thanks, Grant. And just to let the other council members know, we are running a little bit short on time, so I'll take a few questions. And then I think we'll need to take a vote. I also wanted to just add that while I was not on council in 19, I did run the open space bond, and this was one of the projects for capital improvements that we highlighted. And that bond within the city passed by, I don't even know what it was. It was 62, I think, overall, but maybe it was 63 or 64 in the city, actually possibly higher. But I know this is one of those projects that the public was very excited about during this campaign, and I'm excited to support that. There is, I think, a safety issue up there for sure with where people are parking. There's a major erosion issue, and I think we're kind of lucky that there have not been any real problems in the winter with that steep slope and erosion and drainage and all that. So I will happily be voting for this myself. Jordan?
Yeah, a couple of things. First, land use and planning has a light agenda, so you're welcome to take some time if this discussion needs to go long. Second, not a question, but just a comment. This is a really I think, a really exciting piece of the open space bond. And I think it's exciting for a couple of reasons. The first is that it is creating an accessible recreation site. I think that this is, there are very few places that are accessible to users of all abilities. And this is a community value, and it's really important. And so I'm really happy that we're creating this accessible trail up here in a beautiful place, in a real important area of our open space network. These road improvements will be really helpful. I guess to speak substantively to that measure that's before us today. I also just want to say that I think this is another opportunity to tell the success story of our acquisition of our water system. And I know that that's part of the plan to have some interpretive signage. And so I just am really proud of this project. I'm really happy with that it's moving forward, and I'm happy to support this action, which is a logistical component of that.
Thanks. We have no public. Jordan, would you like to make the motion?
Yeah, sure. I would be happy to make the recommended motion.
Great. I don't see any other council members' hands up. Would anyone like to continue this discussion, or should we go to a vote? Seeing no hands up still. Let's go ahead and take a roll call vote. And Grant, thanks so much. That's great. And I appreciate that Neil's here to give some background, but I don't think we need that quite yet. We'll be excited to talk about that when it comes to us as well. Karina, are you here to do the roll call vote?
Yep, I'll take care of it. Okay, Anderson.
Yes.
Anderson votes yes. Contos.
Yes.
Contos votes yes. Harp.
Yes.
Harp votes yes. Hess.
Yes.
Hess votes yes. Jones.
Yes.
Jones votes yes. Merritt.
Yes.
Merritt votes yes. Ramos.
Yes.
Ramos votes yes. Cheryl.
Yes.
Cheryl votes yes. Vaseka.
Yes.
Vaseka votes yes. West.
Yes.
West votes yes. That is, I believe it's 10 yeses, 0 nos.
That's great. So that motion passes, and that will be on the consent agenda as well. We have no public in the audience attendees, so I think that's all we need. Thank you so much, everyone. Appreciate your time, and 3 minutes to spare.
Thank
Thanks, Karina.
you.
Thanks, guys.